Taking even a little time to pay attention, it's clear that nothing is static and unchanging in our universe. Not only does evolution happen to everything in our reality, it happens all the time, endlessly. As the Buddhists love to point out, the only permanent feature of the universe is the fact of change itself. In this edition of the Temporal Reverie, I want to explore a narrative that may or may not resemble the truth, but certainly provides a very novel blending of various ideas and concepts this series has explored. If there's a way of seeing the human experience that folds together some of the biggest ideas of metaphysics, then I'm curious to find it. The word evolution has become so intensely charged with emotion that semantics gets in the way of our understanding. After all, evolution is simply the fact of change. When something evolves, it undergoes change and becomes something in one moment that it wasn't the moment before. We don't seem to object to a journey of endless change when we call that change growth. To grow is also to change, to become something you didn't used to be. Transformation is another less sticky word for this endless evolution. Whatever you call it, though, one thing is clear. Even if only by virtue of the passage of time and the action of entropy, everything changes, constantly. Fighting it will do no good. You can't stop it any more than you can stop the march of hours from one day to the next. Better to try and observe it, describe it, understand it, in order to benefit from it on your way across the theater of experience in the quest for one's finest and most complete humanity. Something in my personal exploration through the domains of reason, science, physics, and metaphysics has led me to believe is expressed in a paradoxical statement I came up with and of which I'm rather fond. I like to say, we live in a random universe in which there are no coincidences. One of the things we've learned from quantum mechanics is that the subatomic universe has an inescapable randomness to it. While Einstein said that God does not play dice with the universe, Stephen Hawking says that not only does God play dice, but he often throws them where we can't see them. The fundamental workings of reality are random. That suits me. In my mind, randomness creates a degree of unpredictability that opens the door to free will and the prospect of creating miracles. At the same time, our universe is replete with pattern and predictable structure. From the way relativity explains the bending of light around the edges of massive objects, to the way the Pauli exclusion principle describes the orderly filling of atomic orbitals by electrons, there is evidence of order everywhere you look. It is this simultaneous randomness without coincidence that facilitates, at least in part, our evolution, our growth, and our transformation. The nature of our reality sets up forces, tides, currents, momenta that follow the default programming of the laws of nature, but which nevertheless respond to instructions from an enlightened consciousness to do things that common sense says are impossible. These are the forces that exert evolutionary pressure in our lives. We face challenges. We teach others. We learn from others. We help and are helped. We experience what comes our way. How we process that experience determines the day-by-day as well as the lifetime of growth and development that defines our lives. While I once sat on the fence, now I firmly believe in reincarnation. The evidence is just too compelling to ignore. And besides, I struggled mightily with the idea that a loving God would send us into this world as blank slates of ignorance, then give us only a handful of decades at best to sort out right and wrong, and how to be creatures of peace, love, light, health, compassion, and so on, with the price of failure being eternal damnation. So not only do I believe in the fact of reincarnation, I believe in its purpose. As expressed in a prior episode, we reincarnate to gather new experiences as different kinds of human being under varying conditions at different points in history. As long as we can demonstrate progress to the divine mind at the end of each incarnation, we can return to the theater of experience to gather more learning, further expand our awareness and hopefully our wisdom, and be of service within the creation. Our growth, our evolution, unfolds not just within the events of a single lifetime, but across multiple lifetimes. And in this too, there is no coincidence. Outside this reality, we are recognizable but very different beings than the ones we know here. Beyond the boundaries of this universe, we awaken as our true selves, our eternal selves, the product of growth and transformation over many lifetimes assimilated and blended into our most authentic state of being. Once we have chosen or agreed to reincarnate, we prepare for our return with a process of deep self-examination by which we choose what we are coming to the world to do, what we aim to accomplish, who we will meet, the significance of those meetings, what we intend to create and experience and learn. While we cannot consciously recall that decision-making once we arrive back in this world, very likely all the important events that transpire in this life were planned, chosen, and arranged for particular aspects of our growth. The process by which all this reincarnation and accumulated learning takes place is intended to help us manage the differences on one hand between our authentic and eternal selves, the selves that retain all we have learned in prior incarnations, and on the other hand, our current incarnation. This is where the structure of human consciousness helps us. In order to participate in each incarnation with a fresh perspective, knowing nothing, and ready to process experience and learning, the details of what and how we have learned from previous incarnations must be obscured from our conscious minds. This is not to say that the energy of those incarnations is entirely inaccessible to us. The truths we came to see, the echoes of our feelings and attitudes remain with us as part of the contents of our subconscious minds. And with disciplined study or natural talent, we can interpret our dreams and access our intuition to see what we may glean from the hidden backstories in our subconscious awareness. After all, what is the point of growing and gaining awareness and wisdom if we can't draw upon it in our current lives in order to guide this journey? However, absent use of the techniques like psychic readings or hypnosis, the concrete details of those lives are typically unavailable to us. Our lives would be much more complicated if we had to keep straight memories of multiple past lifetimes while we're trying to sort out what we're doing in this lifetime. Even so, our mortality will eventually bring our time to a close. Mind and soul will separate from the decaying body. We incorporate our newest experiences with all that our authentic selves know and remember, integrating new memories with old ones so that we expand and evolve into what we seek to become. Human beings alive today often live in dread and anticipation of death. Strangely enough, that usually involves a fixation on the experience of physical death. This is a function of the amnesia we require in order to approach each incarnation anew. We not only forget what it was like to have lived before, we also forgot what it was like to have died before, or any recall of what the afterlife experience contains. The genuinely frightening part of death is the death of ego. Ego is a function of our incarnation. Our ego forms and lives in our conscious minds, which don't develop significantly until we are born and enter the theater of experience. In fact, we form a new ego with each incarnation to provide us with awareness of self and a way of being in the world, as well as interacting with others. But since ego is an artifact of incarnation, the end of each incarnation is the end of ego, of this identity. This loss is necessary as part of the process of integrating our experience into our eternal, authentic selves. So we incarnate and reincarnate to experience and grow and evolve. But where does it all truly begin for any of us? As children of consciousness created by God, our long walk begins in the mind of the Creator. Endlessly refining and shaping the creation, God occasionally chooses to create a brand new person, one that has never journeyed in the world before and has no prior growth or evolution upon which to draw. I call this first instance of a human consciousness its prime incarnation. It is us at our most innocent. Those of us who reincarnate are able to carry forward what we learned previously as contents in our subconscious minds. But a prime incarnation has no prior experience to keep in its subconscious. One of the features of a prime incarnation is that it comes to the world equipped only with whatever God has given and has been drawn out of the deeper wellspring of the collective unconscious, its archetypes, its drives, fears, and patterns of gender, race, class, and so on. We often speak of people who are old souls, but a prime incarnation is the experiential opposite of those. They are new souls, moving in the world and accumulating their first experiences. When they die, like all of us, their ego dies while maintaining the memories, echoes, and attitudes of the life just concluded as part of the learning retained in their eternal selves that also serves as the basis for subconscious minds appearing in future incarnations. Once these souls have been awakened back to their eternal, authentic selves and have integrated their first life experience into that awareness, they very likely, like all of us, are given time to commune with God to resolve lingering questions, review the experience to understand it better, contemplate possibilities for further growth, and if the choice is to reincarnate, plans are subsequently made for what that experience will contain, what time and place will mark their re-entry to the world, what gifts, challenges, traits, and so forth will equip them for the next journey in the theater of experience. Reincarnation is not a given. I believe that as long as a soul continues to grow and evolve, it is welcomed, perhaps even invited, to return to the world to accumulate more experience and more learning. At the same time, I think that in the cases of lives lived that were not well considered, but still redeemable, God may require a reincarnation for essential learning, repayment of karmic debts accrued, and so on. When a soul chooses to reincarnate, then determines what kind of experience will provide the growth and spiritual development being sought, as well as duties or service it must perform, the chosen shape of the new human personality has a distinct vibrational pattern that must be in harmony with the moment-by-moment vibration of the universe in order to re-enter the world, as well as to bind that soul's consciousness to a new human body. The energy vibration of the universe is defined partly by the astrological aspects being expressed in any given moment. To successfully reincarnate, the time and place are chosen such that the vibrational pattern the returning soul has selected for itself matches the vibrational pattern of the physical universe, which is the true correlation between human beings and their natal chart. The reincarnated human is born when time, place, and spirit are aligned in vibrational match. Only then and there can the soul cross back into the reality we know. This is the nature of the flow of souls. To be created in the mind of God as a prime incarnation, sent to experience the world equipped with only the gifts God provided, and a subconscious mind containing just what could be drawn from the collective unconscious. The ending of that first journey provides a chance to discover the bigger picture of existence and incorporate that knowledge passed on by the now absent ego. If there is a desire to continue to grow and evolve, a new journey is planned and reincarnation occurs. This time, the subconscious has the experiences of its own from the prime incarnation to help guide its steps. Ideally, each new journey in the theater of experience produces more understanding, compassion, empathy, patience, wisdom, and kindness. The spiritual evolution of a human soul culminates when the death of the body and the associated ego awakens an enlightened spirit in touch with Christ consciousness and no longer in need of further learning. At that point, reincarnation is replaced by resurrection, the final triumph of death over the body and life lived in ego. Not only do our repeated journeys in mortal life aid the personal growth of our authentic and eternal selves, it also provides the means for God expressed in us and by us to come to the creation, experience it in all of its textured complexity, its many wonders, and its unavoidable horror, and in the process be the sensory path through which God touches and knows His own work. In this way, we also fulfill our role in creation itself. Once enlightenment has been reached, we are ready to transcend the need for ego, which exists to serve the needs of mortal life. We are ready to be reunited with the totality of God from which we first arose, in the energetic dance of love for all things and service to all others. We become one with the eternal light of the divine. This episode marks the end of the first season of the Temporal Reverie. It's been an extraordinary blessing to me to be able to share the ideas and perspectives this show has explored. In many cases, sorting out what to say has given me cause to reflect on some of the deeper questions of my own spirituality. I hope that this show has provided food for your own thought and offered possibilities that, whether or not you believe them, have led you to ask your own questions and have therefore helped you find your own truth. Watch for the return of the Temporal Reverie this fall. I'd like to know what you think about this program. You can write to me at the email address on the screen. My thanks to God for this chance to share with all of you, and may the gifts of love, joy, peace, and enlightenment come to you all.